Joel. Did you know diarrhea is hereditary?
What?
Yeah. It runs in your genes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Sci'D Geeks podcast featuring featuring The Last of Us. You know, I can't stop talking about it. I can get enough of it. JMO, welcome to the show. What's up, man?
Thank you, bro. I mean, now at this point, it's become the biggest replacement for me for football. Now I have something to do on a Sunday, so I'm glad Last of Us is here.
Yes, and I really appreciate it. And in fact, a couple to announce that one of them I reminds me of is that they're gonna release episode 5 on Friday, because so that it doesn't interrupt the Super Bowl for us football fans, right? But I wanted to throw it out there, and actually, Rolly was the one that keeps asking me every week, "Hey, have you told them?" You know, because he gave me this feedback. But to the ones that are on the fence about The Last of Us, you can find the episode 1, the first episode, for free on YouTube. So you can actually watch the whole entire first episode. Like if you're in the fence whether should I pay the $10 or $15, however HBO Max is, and you're like, I don't know if it's worth it. First of all, let me tell you, it is worth it. But then second, if you don't know and want to go check out the first episode just to kind of, remove any doubts, it's there for free. So thank you, Rolly, for that insight.
Yeah, I mean, also like what was nice is for the people that are on the fence because you're, let's say, not into anything sci-fi related or something this out there, I guess is the best way to describe it. I know for a fact you'll like it because my brother, who does not subscribe to the same types of movies I subscribe to, was intrigued when I was watching this last episode. So it's episode 4. As I was watching, he goes, "Man, what the hell is this?" I'm like, "Yeah, just watch it. You'll like it." And he eventually he came around.
Yeah, man, I can say the same thing about my wife. She doesn't like this type of episodes, and then she's there with me, and half on the episode, half on TikTok or whatever it is. My kids are watching it, so it's a family thing. We're loving it, man. But just to kind of get straight into it, talk to me about so ending from episode 3, right? The Bill and Frank episode, which we both liked. And it looks like at the beginning of the week or throughout the week, it had like very good ratings. Everybody was loving it. Tell me what you just told me before the podcast, because I want to talk about that.
Well, I mean, as we're doing research on this show or any of our shows that we chime in on, you come across certain articles. I read an article just yesterday saying how the ratings for episode 3, after hearing of the rave reviews it got, the ratings started plummeting for some reason. People were having some, I guess, negative feedback on it. And it was just it took me for a loop because I was very hesitant prior to seeing that episode. And I was completely blown away by it. Just because of how much it enriched the story compared to the video game. So I was kind of lost to see why people, what the gripes were on their end. What's your theory behind that?
Yeah, and I actually talked to a couple of folks because at the beginning I was like, just standalone. I saw the episode, I thought it was great. I rewatched it before the podcast, and I was like, man, I think it hit me harder. And we started seeing some of these. Well, I personally, like I'm currently on The Last of Us talk, right? Like every other TikTok video or reel is about The Last of Us, and I'm enjoying it. And you're right. Like that first week, it was nothing but people like saying how good it was, people crying, but then I started watching towards the end, the haters of the show. And, I actually talked to some, friends of mine that actually didn't like they felt like it had an agenda, right? Like the woke agenda and trying to bring that in or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
the thing is that, whatever, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But what they, maybe didn't pay attention to is that, yes, it's confirmed that in the game, Bill was gay. And further than that, right, they were saying, well, it didn't move the story at all, right? Like they were like, this is a filler episode, and it didn't, move the story at all. And that's how they feel. And I personally disagree. I think it moved the story, like I said in the last podcast, that, it kind of sets up Joel as taking that role of the protector, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but even if it was a filler episode, right? That had nothing to do with the story. I mean, the quality of that episode, because when you describe a filler episode in any show, it's something that is just boring. Like there's no action, nothing's happening, right? And they go on
It's
the
something
side.
it's something that never really adds to any nuance of the story.
Exactly. But this story, standalone, like you can watch it without watching the rest of the episodes, and it's like a feature short film, right? Like a feature film. I mean, the acting was great, the message was great. It was a love story. What's there not to like? So for people that were looking, for kind of like the action on She-Hulk or whatever, like you just have to adapt, right? And
Right.
sorry you didn't enjoy it, but I'm glad I'm on the side that did enjoy it. But I think that's where the hate is coming from, right? Like those negative reviews.
From my take on it, from the people I talked to, is they don't understand why they were pursuing this gay relationship. And I had to really tell people, I go, understand one thing. How would you look at it if this was a straight relationship? Would you say the same thing? Would you have gripes about it because it was a filler episode?
Right.
Or would you be like, oh, look how they enriched the story? Unfortunately, some people, look through, I guess, tainted goggles when they're looking at certain storylines. And if something is completely different to their own life or what they're comfortable with, it really comes down to what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
You tend to err on the negative if you're not comfortable with it, and that's really on them. And it kind of like takes away from the storyline and how good it was. Because like you, I think it added a lot to more like on the back end of each person's story. So the main people we're always worried about is Joel and Ellie. So that episode kind of like sets a tone different from the prior episodes because Joel was robotic. Other than the opening credits scene or the opening scene in episode 1, he's become a shell of himself. He's a robot at this point. He chooses not to care about anything other than his 2 feet and what's in front of it.
Right.
So anything further than that, anything past his eye view, he's not really paying attention to it anymore. So the letter itself added so much to the story, and maybe because we're more skewed because we know a lot of the story from playing the game and kind of know where it leads to and all the hurdles that they're going to jump across. The people that are new to the whole story of Last of Us, never played the game, are looking at it through tainted goggles, I guess.
Yeah. And, for the people that didn't listen to the last podcast and maybe came across this one, I'll repeat this one more time and then we'll leave it alone. But, for the people that think or say, they're forcing this agenda on us, they're forcing it on us, right? On our kids, I just beg you, right, to look at it from the point of view of maybe all those years that you grew up watching, whatever TV, you were forcing them out, right? And now we're just being more inclusive. So if you look at it from that side, we've been forcing them out. Now we're letting them in and it's a beautiful thing. So with that, let's get into episode 4. Please hold my hand.
Yeah. Another reference to a song. Like,
Yes.
I'm like wondering, are all the titles references to songs? Since this is back to back now.
Maybe we'll see. I mean, we have well, part two was infected. I think we should maybe ask Slipknot or something to write that song. Wait, I think they
Let's
might
simmer
have.
them down.
I think they might have a song called "Infected." But anyway, but yeah, I like it. Please hold my hand. So kick us off, JMO. How do we start? How do we start this episode?
I mean, like, before we dive into like the different sequences that we come across, the thing about this episode that I like the most is, like, and maybe I'm going back to the same bucket over and over again. I just saw so much of the game in this episode, like literally from the opening scene. Well, maybe not the opening scene, because the opening scene is her in the mirror.
Yeah.
The drive, the conversations in the car, and honestly, I think the people writing these two writers, the guy from Chernobyl, what's his name, Craig Mazin, and the show's inventor for the game, really took their time to really tell a great story, because they're bringing in so many attributes or so many nuances from like little details that we never saw in the game, that were never
Right.
part of the game, and now it's to a point where like I'm wondering if I had questions in the game of how this happened. This show is literally telling you how it happened.
Right.
So, and I just liked how you saw them, I guess, change their relationship slightly. Move in the let's put it this way: they moved in the right direction. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't like a complete switch in feelings, but they slightly moved up
Yeah.
in their relationship, and it added to the fact of we got to see more of the world they live in, and seeing what other enemies out there that aren't just infected.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. The creators of this show are or did it again, right? Like with giving us sometimes these line by line, frame by frame scenes, right, from the game, and then boom, they switch it up on us too, and they bring a whole bunch of new things to the show and other perspectives, like you said, that we couldn't couldn't think about in the game, because the game, it was moving, it was action, and you had to kind of deal with the clickers and the infected or whatever. And again, this is another show or another episode where we don't even see that, but we did get a lot of action.
Yeah.
But we start with that opening scene, right? A shot of Ellie, and we see her with the gun. She took a gun from Frank, right, from Frank's drawer, and she's pointing at it. Which, by the way, I have a note here. There's a Beretta 70 series lightweight pistol. We're getting down to the detail today, with these
Sure.
Easter eggs. But I thought it was cool because we start with it, like she keeps it, and now she's like locked up in the bathroom, just like looking in the mirror, pointing it at herself or whatever. And you can tell that she's happy. She's like, man, this is what I want, right? Like an accomplishment almost.
She's every kid that's ever gotten her hands on something they shouldn't be getting their hands on. Like,
Right.
This is the coolest thing in the world. Oh my God, what am I going to do with this now? And
Right.
it could be anything. The biggest thing I took from that brief opening scene of her, not going too far, just like her pointing the gun in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you noticed that scene, and I guess I'm going to be using a pun, that scene literally mirrors her face when she points that gun at actually somebody later in the show.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same look. The difference is, like, instead of pointing at herself, she's pointing at who the hunters are, which we'll get into later. And I think there's just some sort of like nice little juxtapositioning there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the way it starts and the way it ends is almost very similar in the sense of the shot, right?
Yes.
With Ellie holding the gun, but way different situations, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, very cool. Then we speaking of puns, we jump to the point where Joel is trying to siphon gas out of a car, and that's where
Right.
we kind of get introduced to the book, right? That Ellie had. What is it? No pun intended. Volume 2 with two O's by Will Livingston. And for the folks that are very into the show and are thinking, let me jump on Amazon and try to go buy that book. It is a fictitious book. It doesn't exist. But man, oh man, somebody needs to make one because great dad jokes on there.
Well, let's just put it this way. What I've noticed is anything that's reading material or video material that's on the show is straight from the book, straight from the game. With, especially with this, they literally took the title of the book straight out of the game.
Yeah.
And moving forward, there's other somewhat reading material that comes straight from the game too. So don't be looking for that either, especially you. Really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously I looked, and that's how I know it doesn't exist. But yeah, very interesting scene right there because, and it's important because she tells a pun right there, and I think it was something about I forgot something about an envelope. I forgot, it escaped my mind right now, and I think one about something about an envelope. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's important because here she tells the pun, she starts laughing, and Joel is kind of like pissy about it, right? Like he's just like, I'm not into it. I'm not gonna laugh. Mind you, she kind of roasts him after she asks him how does the siphon work, and he really doesn't know, right? Like he doesn't know the physics of it. He's like, you're blowing, it works, right? So,
I was trying to figure out how he was doing it because, like, if I've ever siphoned gas, I've always like taken it out, had to spit most of it out. That disgusting feeling you get, and it just starts flowing. I don't know how he was doing the whole blowing action.
Yeah, it seemed like he put one hose in, and I'm gonna try my Joel explanation. Right, he puts one hose in, and then he's trying to blow on the air pocket inside the tank to push the liquid down inside the holes that it's in the liquid, right? I think that's how it's supposed to work. But again, no rocket scientist here. But very good point. But a cool thing is that that is in the game as well. And I actually wrote down a quote where Bill throws him a siphon and tells him, hey, you'd be surprised how many cars still have gas in them, right? And they brought that into the show because, apparently gas. And apparently they make a comment, which is interesting. And I don't know if this is scientifically proven, right? But after 20 years, right, a lot of the gas, because gas evaporates, right? And I guess
goes back to water.
Whatever, or however long it would take you before, like 20 miles a gallon. I guess it's like stop every hour nowadays, right? In this universe, so I just thought an interesting fact.
What's funny that you said, like, you saw this in the game under for like the scenes with Bill. I feel like this isn't the only time in this episode that they're mixing plot points where, like, something that we saw in Bill's story in the game, not in the episode that we saw last week, but in the game, is getting rewritten by the writers and brought into this episode. I noticed that again kind of towards the end, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah, sure. One of those parts is, I think, and it's like the very next scene where the magazine, right? The magazine part where, and that this is another, for the doubters out there that didn't think that Bill was gay in the game, right? Here's another validation that's in the game, and I'm glad that they put it in the show where she opens the magazine, right, and it's like a Playgirl type magazine, right? And then immediately she's like, she turns and he's like, "Whoa, my God, what is that? How do you walk with that?" Right?
Why are these pages sticky?
Right. That was the shit. And Joel's like, and she's like, got you. And that's like, again, frame for frame. I'm glad they put it in there, right?
You know what I like about Ellie right now in these scenes is that she's trying to break down Joel's force field, or guard, I should say, with jokes and funny anecdotes.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not working as of now, but she's slowly breaking into his hard shell.
Yeah, and that's why I said I think it's important to kind of talk about those little things, because we'll see it evolve throughout the episode. Another thing, so they're driving on the highway, man, and one thing that I want to kind of point out is the scenery and a couple of things, right? So in the show, and I'm sorry, in the video game, when she throws the magazine, we see a Pittsburgh sign, and we know they're in Pittsburgh. For some reason, I think it's because they're, wherever they were filming doesn't resemble Pittsburgh at all, and I think it was been too hard to make it very Pittsburghy, right? They make it Kansas City, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that, man, like, I really like the scenery and what they did, man. Like, it looked very, very real. Even like as a truck, there's a shot from the street. I don't know if it's drone or whatever, and they're following the truck, and you can see like even the vegetation like growing on the road and everything very post-apocalyptic, right? Mm-hmm. I thought it was awesome. Let
me ask you this. Why did you think we saw a herd of buffalo and they seemed untouched? Now, they didn't really explain too much why. They did, and they kind of didn't. They touched on it, on why the rural areas are more infected, or I'm sorry, the urban areas are more infected than the rural areas. But like, you would think at some point, even animals can get infected. Now, why aren't, like, I haven't seen a single bird, not even a mosquito, or any type of animal have the same infection, because all we've known about the cordyceps in the real world is they take over insects and they mutate insects into their bidding, and kind of similar to what we see in the show. So why aren't animals being touched in this?
Yeah, I think it's because of why in 1968 it wasn't affecting humans, and it's because of the temperatures, right? Because animals run a higher temperature than humans. If you and that's why dogs, don't need I mean we put a coat and a sweater on our dog when we walk them, but yes, they don't really need it, right? They go out there, whether they're a furry dog or not, like, they can withstand the cold a little bit more than us, because their temperature is like 2 or 3 degrees higher than us. But 2 or 3 degrees inside your body, it's a lot, right? So
what you're saying is my uncle, who has a fur coat, a natural fur coat, will never get infected. Even if someone bites him or anything, he'll never get that infestation, because he has a natural fur coat and he's always running warm. Is that your theory on this?
Yes, but with your uncle, I think it's because the infected don't like eating greasy stuff.
So they're allergic. So you're immune if you eat falafel. Got it. So it's the falafel. That's the cure.
But anyway, that's my theory, right, as to why it hasn't jumped. But yes, I agree with that. Now, I read somewhere, or I saw it in a video, and I don't know if you have it on your notes, but about the buffalo, I think it did represent something, right? And I don't know if you saw the same thing, and I can't recall where I saw it. So many things, but something about.
Well, they said the cordyceps need to grow. They can't grow in, I guess, rural areas. They have to be in more remote areas, like big cities. Mm-hmm. That's how they can like cling on people and spread. These rural areas are, for some reason, according to Joel's theory, and mind you, the same person that can't just explain how he siphons gas. because of the way it mutated, it needed the people to spread to spread the disease. That's what he
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. And what I was gonna add is that wherever I saw this is that this particular type of buffalo was extinct or close to being extinct at some point when
Really?
when humans, and this was like back in the day, started building the railroad and started like going into rural areas. And I actually saw a clip where like they have a bunch of buffalo, they were just killing them, right? And I
Yeah.
think what they were trying to show in the episode is that now there's no humans to kill them, right? Now there's no humans to like fuck all that shit up in rural areas or whatever. So that's why they're there and they're calm. If you saw the buffalo, they were like
Hmm.
peaceful, chilling, like that's their land now. And I think just kind of like how we experienced it during the pandemic, right? Like we were seeing dolphins and shit. Like, well, not we, right? But like around the world, just animals were coming out because humans were locked up. And I think it was kind of like the same thing. And I liked it. I liked it.
You know what it reminded me? It reminded me of Endgame when it's that scene with Captain America and what's her name, Black Widow, in the beginning, where he's like, we saw whales in the Hudson. And like, it looks like everything is getting back to normal.
But
I'm like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, interesting. All right, cool. Those are back to normal.
Yeah, man, I really liked it. There was another scene too where like there's this like train like hanging off the railroad track. It was like a bridge, and like it
Mhm.
makes you think, okay, so infected started spreading, but what does that have to do with like all the destruction, right? And then you see a field full of like tanks or whatever that Joel promised Ellie she was gonna see, but mayhem happened, dude. Like throughout this
Yeah.
last 20 years, like shit happens where like you even have to probably shoot down a train. Jesus, yeah.
Well, the thing is, like with the trains, that whole railroad track that's elevated that we see that's collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
That's not because of rust got to it and it collapsed it. Someone went over there and blew that puppy up
Yeah.
because it would take a lot longer time than, let's say, 15 years to get that going.
I
Because in
agree.
the beginning, you would imagine uh, people are trying to escape, going back and forth, and using it as a route to maybe smuggle or bring in people. So my assumption is, my theory is, someone had a clash between two parties, and to eliminate their route, they knocked down that fucking bridge for the
Yeah.
railroad.
Yeah, so right from there, we see they pull into the woods, right, and that's another pretty critical scene because they pull in to kind of like take a or set camp for the night, no
Hmm.
fire, and Joel explains to Ellie that it's not because of the infected. That's where he explains, yeah, that's they don't come to rural areas. I'm more worried about people, and they don't start a fire. And you can see that Ellie's demeanor changes. She's like, oh shit, like what are they gonna do to
Yeah.
us? It's like you don't want to know. But
Well, let me ask you this. Like, we saw that scene, and huge scene. Like, he kind of explained it. Ellie gave him another pun right before he went to sleep.
mhm.
Something about shitting your pants or something like that.
No, that was the one at the end. The pun at
Oh,
the end.
that's right.
I think this
That's
one
right.
was about the mermaid. Something about a mermaid and an algebra. Yeah. Oh, why was she bad in math? Because she didn't have algebra or something like that.
Yeah. No, I think she said, "What did she wear to the math class?"
Oh, there.
And
Algebra.
algebra.
There you go. And then
But
Joe's kind of like, yeah, like, God damn it.
like, you get, like, we get that scene. He brings the element of people,
Hmm.
about he's scared of people. Literally, the next scene, as they're driving through Kansas City, they run into people.
Yeah.
I guess my biggest question to you is, how are Joel's instincts so right from the get go, with everything that's been happening? You see somebody, he's wounded. Maybe for us in this world, we would go help them. We haven't gone through whatever he's gone through, but like from your standpoint, What do you think how do you think his instincts are so sharp at this point?
Yeah, and I think we'll find out with something that he says later in the episode, right? And I think that and we'll jump back and forth, but I think he was on that other side, right? He kind of mentions, right, that he hasn't
Yeah.
played, he's played both sides, right? The good and bad, and I think he just knows because in the past that's probably that he probably would have done, right? Like he sees two people that are innocent and vulnerable, and he's probably
Mhm.
gonna go raid them, right? Because he's worried about his survival and his people's, right? So I think that's why it's a good instinct because I think he has lived that, right? Either on
Right.
the receiving end or the giving end, unfortunately, right?
You know what? It adds. I guess it adds content to that line that Tess says that to Ellie. Me and Joel aren't good people. We've done bad things,
Right.
and this is almost like the fruition that comes from that. Like, oh, here's there's a reason I know about this. Remember what we told you before? We're not good people. This is why.
Yeah, and but I just wanted to before we leave this scene, I just thought to mention because this was very important. As Ellie is going to sleep, right, and they're like, "Hey, we need to get some rest because they have a big drive the next day," and she's kind of fine, like, "Let me go to sleep." She's kind of worried, but she's like, "Well, I got Joel," and they go to sleep, and he's like, "Oh, you have to worry about it or whatever." Joel, the next scene, he's standing, bro. Like she's knocked out and
Hmm.
she's standing, so he didn't sleep. Like he
Yep.
lay down for a little bit, but I think the nerves didn't let him sleep, which will I think come into play later on the episode because he's tired, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I think another aspect of I'd say the car ride that we get right after they get back on the road is the fact of, what drives Joel? Because she literally asks him, "What's the point of living at this point?
mhm.
What do you keep living for? Why don't you just end it?"
Yeah,
And he tells her it's because of family, because of his brother. He told her that in this crazy world, the only important thing is family. His brother's out there. He's got to find him. He told her that Tess was just like family. So we finally get to see a little bit of Joel's heart and where
yeah,
it stands at this point. So he's not completely cold hearted. He's just beat up in there. His
yeah.
heart's has taken a lot of shots over the 20 years that this has been going on, and it's still beating, and it still has a drive.
And we are back once again, which is wanted to make sure we give you the smoothest experience with the podcast and not lose any content because every single second of the Side Geeks podcast covering episode 4 of The Last of Us is important. But anyway, let's get back to it, J-Mo.
Yeah, I mean, we were just ending talking about Joel's heart and where it stands, and we finally get a glimpse at it. With him explaining to Ellie how important what are the important things in life in his life are, and
Mm-hmm.
at this point, everything revolves around Tommy because he's
Mm-hmm.
with losing Tess. I think Tommy is his last little glimmer of hope in this crazy world they live in. With everything that we come across, like even remember when Ellie's like, "Oh my God, why are these roads this way?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're this way because tanks came through with this crazy bulldozer in the front, which we end up seeing later what it looks like, and demolished everything. You know what was great about? There was a line where he says about how the military was built. He goes, "The military was built to take on a different type of enemy, and they were not prepared for what happened next."
Right.
And I was
That's
just like, "Holy shit, that's solid."
yeah, that's very solid because like who would have it's like when we see in movies and even in real life like these biological weapons, right? And this is without it being a weapon created by man. It was a fungi that mutated and fucked everything up, right?
Right.
And who would see that coming, right? The dude in 1968 that predicted it, but everybody just kind of turned off the TV and moved along. But anyway, so yeah, very important. And I think that that scene when Ellie shoots her shot to ask about Tommy, right, is the first time that we see Joel open up and like actually tell her like the history behind it, right, and where how Tommy he's a joiner, he says, like he joined the army and he fought in Desert Storm, and then when this shit happened, he joined the Fireflies, and then he quit that. But I think that the whole point of it was that's Joel's purpose, right? To be saving Tommy, right? Like, and but I also think there's a deeper meaning than that, right? Like, because I think he thinks, man, Tommy's always in trouble since he was in jail, right? On episode 1, and he's like, I gotta go bail him out. I gotta go bail him out of the Fireflies. I gotta, but not only Tommy doing these things, but I think it's more about Joel wanting to do these things, right? Like, that gives him the reason to live now that Sierra's not here, right? Like, he seems annoyed by it, but that's just kind of his role right now.
Yeah, I think to that aspect, how we keep saying that we keep seeing this theme of love conquers all type of situations.
Yeah.
I think with this episode, it added another theme, and the biggest theme for this episode was forgiveness. Because you see Tommy always getting in trouble, Joel forgiving him and bailing him out. Now you get little stories here and there from Joel when he's talking to Ellie. Yeah, when she asked him, "Have you killed people in the past?" He's like, "Yeah, but it was different." So like now we take on the role where we need to forgive Joel for his past indiscretions as well. When he's explaining to Ellie. So like forgiveness is a key, I guess, theme to this particular episode.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna get different themes as we go along, but I think with episode 4, forgiveness was a key point.
I agree, and let me ask you a question, right? Because there's a line in there that I that I believe it's important, right? And Joel tells Ellie that she's not family, she's cargo, right? Because you do all this for family. But do you really think he believes that at this point, or do you think he is starting to feel like she's family, but he just won't admit it, right, to her?
I think with where Joel was as he's saying it, he was really trying to suppress any feelings and keeping her in the viewpoint as cargo. I don't think until later in the episode, when something traumatic happens, he then views her differently. At the moment, he sees her as cargo.
Yeah.
He's really putting her. He's giving her the Heisman, and he's like, you know what? You stayed arm's length away, and I'm leaving you in this little world. You're not allowed in here. So as long as she's out there, and she can say all the puns she can, it's still not registering as funny to him. So she's still cargo at this point. I truly believe he thinks that.
Okay.
And to me, he's doing it as a more of a defense mechanism than anything else. I don't think he's trying to be cold. I think he's just protecting what's left of his heart.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Although I do believe that he truly didn't believe or mean that, right? Your cargo. Like, I think that was just something to say, to kind of be that cold-hearted dude, but I think he's starting to give in a little bit, right? Just by his conversation and his reaction to her puns and all that, right? But
it's not the first time he's called her that. This is literally the second time he's called her that.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. We jump a little forward, and the highway's closed. Which it annoyed the shit out of me, because
it's an amazing trap, because you think the way they have it blocked off, and past the point where all the cars are blocking off, they're blocking off an entrance to a tunnel. Joel takes a look at the tunnel and he's like, that's a trap. But these hunters that we end up getting introduced to set up the trap so that they're forced into the city, and that's where the real trap is. So that was a great reverse psychology they played on him.
Yeah, and I was having this dialogue with future young Rigo, and it just was kind of like, like the continuity of the series is awesome, but there's just some little things, right, that, it's like a movie thing, right, where, like, couldn't you just, like, you've been driving this truck into the fields like nothing, right, like into the
Right.
woods, like in the episode 1 where Tommy's is like, oh, just get off the highway, right? Like, why didn't you just go around the ramp, bro? But yeah, to your point, yeah, he thought there was a trap behind it. But it's like, just go around, man. And it's like, all of a sudden you guys are lost inside the city. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I don't get that. But quick
I'm,
Easter egg.
I'm pretty sure in the game, I don't think anytime we walk through any sort of tunnel, it didn't have to be like a drivable tunnel. There was always monsters there. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he was worried about, because they were in Kansas City now, which wasn't, which is an urban setting. I wasn't sure if he was worried about hunters at that point, or maybe even hunters and clickers at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible. And speaking of clickers, I just wanted to drop a quick Easter egg. The truck that was blocking the bridge, the highway, it was a Sara Lee truck, which is a flower truck. So irony there.
Oh wow!
And then
Good call.
yeah, and then we also see a couple of shots of like skeletons burnt like inside the cars, right? And it just makes me think that Fedra or the government or whatever at that point, man, like just started burning these motherfuckers off, like not even infected, right? Just started burning people. I mean, you don't know what happened there. You just have to assume because they didn't turn, they were burned. But the car, it was just a scene. But anyway,
I think any scene right now that we see, let's say in the car with the burned body, or when he tours and goes towards the city to try to get back on the highway, you see additional burned bodies.
yeah,
All these burned bodies are not of fully infected people. They're still people.
yeah, there's still people,
Now
man.
we don't know if they're on the beginning stage of infection, or if this had anything to do with the Kansas City's QZ going down, but with the hunters taking over.
It's very possible. And remember on episode 1 where he's like throwing that kid into the fire, it seemed like almost like a pile like that, right? Like the QZ was just a few blocks away, and maybe it was just the pile of dead bodies. But man, that was crazy.
When I first saw the dead bodies in the city, I'm like, man, is that thing steaming? At first I was trying to figure out if this was newly burnt bodies, but it was literally the ash being blown by the wind, showing you how this has happened a long time ago.
That's interesting, man. And also another Easter egg while they're driving there, like I think right before or after we see the pile of bodies, Matchstick Men and Underworld are still on the movie theater sign, which does accurately reflect 2003 Underworld.
Right.
Respect,
Especially with Underworld.
Yeah, I like it. But anyway, so the QZ has been taken over. They get ambushed again, very similar to what happened in the game, except in the game it wasn't a city. It was like a small village, like a small town, but this was in the big city, right?
Right.
We see the dude like faking it, and then he knew immediately, no, they're not. We're not gonna help them. Like this is an ambush, and we see them get ambushed and crash into that laundromat again. Another frame for frame scene.
It's amazing how that was kind of like the thing where I was talking about with Joel's instincts, and kind of showing, like, to really what you said, him living the hunter life, let's be honest, and how quickly he kind of like deciphers and goes, no, I've seen this, I've done this.
Yeah,
this is them just setting us up to get murdered.
Yeah, and then we get the big scene, right? Like the couple of shots are exchanged. He tells Ellie, "Hey, like go hide behind that wall. I'm gonna take care of this." And this is where I think that not only the age, but also like the lack of sleep may start to affect him, right? Because he got the two guys, but he told him is the third guy that busts in the back, which is a young kid that tries to attack him and almost gets him, right?
Yeah, what I took from that scene, just to rewind just a little bit, is how how smart he was. When he was telling Ellie, I need you to crawl to that wall and get into that hole, get into the other room. I promise you, they're not going to hit you. I think from the couple of shots that he saw who was shooting at him, they were awful. They were two young guys shooting in awful directions, knowing they weren't going to get him because his firepower or him shooting back at them would kind of deter them.
Mm-hmm.
He connected really quick on both of those guys, and then you're right. Him being in such a, I guess, shitty state of mind, when not get lack of sleep, he couldn't hear that guy coming.
Right, and we learn later on that he's a little deaf on one of his ears, but still, right? Like you could tell that Joel's not the kind of guy that would miss that one, right? Because the kid just busts in and gets him, really. And this is where Ellie, and we see Joel's legs like kicking, like he's about to get Joel, and Ellie first takes out her knife, and then she's like, "No, fuck this," and she walks up behind, and man, you called it. Prediction validated, and I had forgotten that she does this in the game too, that she saves them, but you called it. She used the gun not to do anything stupid, but hits the dude that's trying to and saves Joel's life, right? But
what's crazy? What was crazy with that scene is she gets out of she crawls back into the hole. She has the gun in her hand. She looks determined. She looks like she's on a mission to shoot somebody. She shoots him, and but once he turns around and starts pleading and begging and making up God knows what story, you can tell she's still a kid again. You're reminded of how innocent she really still is, and how she's lost at this point. She's like, "Oh my God, what?" In her head, she's second guessing herself over and over again. Yeah, and I love how Joel steps in. He asks for the gun and literally tells her, turn around and go back into the hole.
Right.
You don't want to see. In other words, you don't want to see. You don't want to see this.
Right. And what made that scene difficult, man, was that kid, because he immediately says his name. Hey, I'm Brian or something, right? I'm Brian, and I don't know what to do. I can't feel my legs. And then he's like, well, call my mom. Call my mom. Like he literally is acting like a kid, like begging, pleading for his mom, right? And which makes it a lot more difficult because it gives this bad guy or whatever a personality and also perspective, right? Because he might not be a bad guy, right? I mean, he might just be trying to defend or whatever, and he's just a kid, and, Joel has to do the hard thing, which is, kill him, right? And any other person, right? Maybe Frank or whatever, like probably would have let them live and probably would have been a big mistake, but Joel knows what he has to do. Meanwhile, we see Ellie kind of hear all this happening, and she starts tearing up, right? Immediately. Now, there's also the perception there that she's crying because of what she did, but I have a feeling that, later in the show, she kind of admits that that's not the first person she shoots, right? So I think we're gonna find out that she shot somebody else, and I think that it was not more the act of shooting, but I think she's remembering whoever she shot first that we don't know. That I think it might have been a traumatic experience, right?
Yeah, from my standpoint, I think it's going to be somebody she loved back in the day, maybe a family member, maybe somebody else, but someone probably gets infected and ends up she has to put them out of their misery type of situation.
Yeah, and very interesting because Joel walks in and he kind of tries to comfort her, and she's like, I'm fine, and she plays it off, right? Which makes me think that, man, like, these characters are so much alike because that's something that Joel would do, right? Like, just don't worry about it. Just, like, let's move on. Let's go.
You could slowly see her try to be like Joel, little aspects here and there. She's trying to find someone to learn from. You can tell that she was, however she was raised. I'm assuming she lost her parents at a very young age, with whatever happened when she got bit on her arm. I assume whoever else was with her was bit, and come to find out, she's never had this guidance before. You know, in the brief couple of episodes that we've seen, he's already taught her so much. How to scavenge for food, what to look for. Talks about how gas can lose its viscosity. All these little aspects. How to like we were making fun of how he siphons gas. Well, he's teaching her all this.
Yeah.
She's absorbing everything that he does. So that little situation where she's rubbing her eyes, like, no, I'm fine. She's just mimicking Joel because she knows what criteria he holds things to, and she wants to be just like him.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Because right away, yeah, she's like, yeah, let's go. Right. Then I think on the next shot, right, we meet Kathleen, which from the beginning of the podcast we said, hey, like, man, they're keeping the consistency, the accuracy with the show, characters, you know, storyline, but then boom, they give us Kathleen and the hunters, right, like the leader of this rebellion, who is not in the show, right? At first, when I first saw it, I'm like, man, I'm trying to remember. I'm like, I think she was, and I think I'm thinking of Marlene, but I'm like, man, like, was she there? But yeah, I confirmed she wasn't. Kathleen, played by Melanie Linsky, who, man, she always plays. I know her, and you all may know her from like 2.5 Men, right? She played like the girl, the next girl next door, right? Super cute, always, and her roles are always super like cute and like defenseless.
She's off her rocker.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's true. But just like someone that wouldn't hurt a fly, right? But this one, man, she's like balls out, talking to this doctor, right?
Right. So she's you get the opening. You get to be introduced to her as she's interrogating a doctor. After the brief interrogation, she hears a commotion outside. I think she is a co-leader in this hunters group, and I think the other guy, Perry, the guy that we saw with the big beard and the machine gun strapped around him, that you end up seeing her. They go to certain rooms together or certain to check out certain buildings together.
Yeah.
I think they're co-leaders on this. Yeah. And one thing that stood out is the fact that I remember the names Henry and Sam right off the bat when she said them, but I didn't recall them ever being like citizens of somewhere or part of a group somewhere. So like I literally looked up the scene in the video game on YouTube of when Joel meets Henry. And I was like, oh yeah, that's completely different. So that's another aspect. That's another aspect of the story that they've switched up. And I prefer the new way of they were doing it because before, let's just put it this way: in the video game, Joel and Ellie are trying to run away from these hunters. They're crawling into windows, and they crawl into a window, and Henry grabs them, and then they have a little scuffle.
Yep.
With this one, as we get to it, you'll notice it's a lot different, and with the whole Kathleen character, she adds a lot more to the whole Henry and Sam story that we never knew about.
Absolutely. They gave him a backstory basically, right? And then she's and obviously she's this woman is looking for them. And just a brief pause there. Do you know who Perry is? Like the actor? Like what else he's on?
No.
It sounds like I need to tell you.
Okay.
Perry is the voice of Tommy in the game.
Shut up.
Swear to God. So Perry is Tommy in the video game, bro. Right?
You know what I did? Honestly, like that's hilarious you said that. I didn't even put two and two together on that. But for some reason I looked up if Ellie and Joel from the video games are going to be in this series, and they are. Big time spoiler alert. So if you don't want to hear this, hit mute. They're going to be in episode 8, both of them. Now, I know that Troy Barker, who voiced Joel, is playing a character named James, and I forgot the actress's name. I forgot who played Ellie.
Because I think there's
Ashley
two Ellies,
something.
right? But
no, there's only one.
There's only one. Okay.
We assumed another one because they made her look like the one actress. from the person from Juno. They made her look.
Oh
They
yeah.
made Ellie's character look like her, but the voice person that voices Ellie is Ashley Johnson. Ashley
Ah,
Johnson,
gotcha.
and she's gonna play a character named Anna in episode 8. So what that means, we wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's just awesome, man, that they're bringing all these people back in and let them be part of this great show because I mean they are Ellie, Joel, Tommy. I mean they are the people, right, that we know from
That's
the video
amazing.
game. So that's pretty cool. So I just wanted to drop that in there because I thought that was pretty cool. But then Kathleen is questioning this doctor, right, and apparently. She's talking about her brother and her brother being tortured, and she mentions, like, was he in this cage? And the doctor's just like, again, pleading for his life almost, and saying, hey, like, I'm your doctor, right? Like, I
He
think
was her pediatrician as a
older
kid.
pediatrician, right? So he birthed her or whatever, and or is that the right term? Birth her, whatever. No, that was just the
Not even
mom.
close.
Okay.
No.
So he was the
you know, you know
OBGYN
what?
that extracted her.
I think what I'm trying to tell you is he was just a kid doctor. He took care of her when she was a little kid, and that's what I mean by pediatrician.
Yes. So,
So wait, one thing I want to point out is, so this group, the Hunters, have taken over this QZ from Fedra. The thing that she points out is this doctor was working in cahoots with Fedra, ratting people out.
yeah,
That's what we come to find out. We find out that this doctor ratted out her brother, who ended up getting killed because of it.
right.
Now, one thing that we find out is from that scene, and then her going outside and coming back in, from Joel and Ellie killing these three hunters, these three hunters, these young hunters. Then, because she asks the question to one of the citizens of her group, is, can we save him? He immediately says, no chance. For some reason, that turns such a switch on her that now, mind you, this is the question I want to ask you. Is there are doctors just everywhere that she had the balls to go back in here, not even open her mouth, point the gun at him, and just shoot him in cold blood? I'm like, who else are doctors in this damn place that you're just
Right.
killing doctors left and right?
Well, that's what makes me think that whatever drove Kathleen or her group to this particular point was something brutal, right? Whatever happened to her brother, whatever. So vengeance is her number one thing right now. And when I thought that scene was interesting because she said, like, I have a doctor, can he make it? Because I have a doctor. I might have a doctor, right? And he's like, no, whatever. So in my opinion, Kathleen was always gonna kill this doctor. She gets interrupted. She goes outside, and then she's like, okay, like, do we need him? No. Okay, well, let me go finish what I started. Because I think in her mind, she was always going to kill him.
I think it's a little different. I think she was on the fence when we first see her being, interrogating him. Not until she saw more people dying, which caused her to have memories of her brother flashback of him being killed, is when she's like, oh, he can't be saved either. Then what the fuck is the point of having a doctor at this point?
Yeah.
If nobody can be saved.
Yeah, and if you think about it, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if they have more doctors. I don't know what society is gonna be, later on in the show. But yeah, like, I think she was just driven by anger, and which is interesting because it's a doctor, right? Like, it's a pretty good resource right there, right? She kills him with no problem. But then she's looking for Henry for doing the same thing, for snitching on her brother, right?
Right.
Which like, shit, this puts pressure on them finding Henry as well, which we hope we get into in episode 5. But she kills the doctor and says, let's go after them, right?
I think this is where we get, like, some really important scenes Like
Yes.
right after she calls out the troops to, go through every building, look through every hole you could think of. We're gonna find whoever did this. The two biggest scenes that stand out, which I'll talk about one, and I think you can talk about the other one,
Mm-hmm.
is you see Joel's heart start to melt for Ellie. She goes out of her way to literally save his life, and it comes to a fruition where he trusts her again and gives her the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Now he gave her a little quick tutorial. How do you hold it? How did you and like where did you learn that? Oh, Fedra taught me. He was like, that's what I thought. He teaches her how to properly hold a gun, and but even with that, he goes, put it in your bag. No, I'm going to put it right here. No, in your bag. But he still wants some sort of control over what she does, but Ellie, being the rebel as she is, she still puts it in her pocket.
Yeah, and I think that scene is key because it's not only him teaching her about the gun, right? This is a father-daughter moment, man. I mean,
Big
this
time.
is it makes me think because I'm teaching my son how to drive right now, right? Like it's the same thing, right? Like, hey, I'm telling him, Dave, dude, like this is a car, this is a weapon, right? Like
Yes.
what you have behind your hands is a weapon because you can kill somebody, so you have to be careful. And it just resonated so much with me because he's showing her, and who does that, right? A father to a child, right, or a mother to a child.
Mm-hmm.
So you're absolutely right. I think this is the first time where we see him like breaking in his regular character into this like loving person, right? Because he also tries to kind of sympathize with her, right? Like, and he doesn't know how
Yeah.
to, right? Like, he's like, oh, I know
Right.
that you're just a child and you shouldn't experience that. And he's like being all choppy, and she's like, you're not doing a very good job, right? but
Right, and like,
but
you see him like, you see her capitalize on this by eventually making him laugh, and
yeah,
it's another shitty pun, literally shitty pun, that gets him going, and so I love the fact that we finally see their relationship grow.
yeah, I definitely loved it, man. A couple other big parts here. We see that Perry finds something, right? And he's calling Kathleen, and first is the attic, right? Or whatever, that attic in that apartment building.
Right.
And it's a drawing, some drawings, right, of like superheroes.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because it tells us not only it's a child, right? And they showed us the
Mhm.
run out of food, but that it's a child and something that would come into play, right? The superhero, like towards the end. But from there, so they're like closer to Henry and Sam. They
Mhm.
feel like, but then Perry's like, but come look at this other thing, right? This is not it. Like, I
Well,
wanted to show you this, but look at this.
but before you go into that, one thing I paid attention to, you know, we after she tells everyone go through every building, find these people, we need to find Henry and Sam. They're behind all this. The one thing that you look at is like she's cold right there.
Mm-hmm.
When she goes into the attic, her face changes. Like
Mm.
a little bit of softness enters in that cold-hearted skull that she had before, and like she had a brief moment of sympathy, or she showed that she had some heart as well.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to possibly the forgiveness theme to all this. Well, we don't know yet because right after that is what you're about to allude to.
Yeah. I mean, you may be right. Maybe I missed that because I feel like she really, and maybe you're right because I feel like she really hates Henry and is after Henry, not Sam. Obviously, we see that Sam is a little kid.
Yeah,
Allegedly, because we don't know if that's Sam and Henry, but yeah, it is.
it is.
So Perry's like, hey, like, come look at this, right? And they go through this like basement or whatever it was. And dude, like this, we see the ground kind of like pulsing, right? Like pulsating. And you're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? And here's an important thing. And I hope we see it in the next episode, right? But Perry's like, because she was like, okay, lock it up and let's go find these people, right? And Perry's like, you sure? Like this is more important. Like this is
Right.
like
We
this
gotta
is
tell
like we gotta take care of this right now. And then she's like, no, just lock up and let's go. We gotta go do this first. And he's just like the follower, like, okay, fuck it, let's go. But something bad is there. Like, what are your thoughts? What do you think is under there?
So, this is what I was alluding to before, where I think they took some of Bill's storyline
Mm.
and brought it into here, because in the game, Bill is the person that shows that we interact with, that we come to. The big bad at that point isn't Bill. We end up seeing a bloater for the first time, and I think this is that they took from that story arc and they brought it into this scene, and I think that's what's causing the floor to pulsate. I think it's him, expanding and retracting as a bloater, because the biggest aspect of a bloater, he's increasing in size and decreasing in size as he gets mad or activated, and that's what I think is causing all this up and down movement of this floor. And I think that in the next episode is what we're gonna have to dive into.
Yeah, and I think there's a little super fast clip in the preview, right, for the next episode where we do see like a big hand. So I think you may be on the right track. But in addition, like in the game, there's also around that part of the story. I don't know if you remember that. I think Joel falls in the sewer line or whatever, and there's a bunch of clickers down there. So I think that not only it might be a bloater, but I think it might have a lot of friends with them, right? Which are clickers,
Right.
because in the game, yeah, remember Joel's like, I think one of the first bosses is that bloater, and there's like a bunch of clickers around, and you're like trying to get rid of them while trying to like burn the bloater. So, knock on wood, hopefully we'll see it.
Bloaters can shoot acid, right? Was that in the game? Can they pulsate anything at you? I felt like, I don't know if I'm remembering it right. That's why. I don't know if they were just big and bad, and when you killed them, they exploded, and
Yeah,
you couldn't
I
be
don't-
around them because they're all acidic. But I think they shot an acidic goo at you.
Really?
as
I
well.
don't know, man. I don't think so, because
Okay.
I think you're thinking what's the Umbrella Corporation?
Resident Evil.
Resident Evil, bro. I think you're thinking that, but I don't know. I mean, I don't remember them doing that, but
Okay.
but you may be right. I don't know. We'll have to look that up. Then they finally make it to the building, and they're supposed to go up 45 flights of stairs, and here's where we see that not only 56 years old, right? At floor 33, he's gassed out, right? No sleep, right? He's like,
Yeah.
man, like, I can't do this anymore. And Ellie kind of like pumps him up, like, come on, old man, like, let's go. And he makes it a little farther, right? And the next thing, he's throwing glass, and she's like, what are you doing? He's like, so that I can hear. We find out that he's deaf from one side, right?
Yeah.
They kind of go to sleep with the good ear up. And that's where she tells the last pun, and had me laughing, had my kids laughing, and plus I had an edible, so I think it's probably it probably helped. But that's the one about the diarrhea, right? Like, because it runs in your genes. And he starts laughing, and this is the first time we see this completely different person that is Joel, enjoying this moment, right? And I don't know if it's like the tiredness, like he's, when you're tired, you do crazy things or whatever, but he starts laughing, cracking up, and puts him to sleep, basically, right?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think the joke was that funny, but I guess it just hit a nerve, and that boy just couldn't stop laughing. Honestly, like, another aspect of them, showing their relationship growing. He literally asked her about the person that she killed. If she wanted to talk about it.
Yes.
And he didn't. And mind you, he asked her a question. She said she didn't want to talk about it, but he didn't pursue it. No, and I figured he did that because he knew how it felt. And she's literally honestly taking right after him with her reactions.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up because I skipped that bullet point. But that was a very important scene, right? Where they're going up the stairs. She asks, right? Like you said, hey, have you killed innocent people? And he doesn't answer, but he answers, right? Like he doesn't answer verbally, but that's like a good shot of his phase reaction, like the actor himself, Pedro Pascal, coming through because he basically admits of having done some really bad shit without having to verbalize it, right? So thank you for bringing us there because, yeah, very important. Because I think we'll see, right? Because we didn't have a flashback in this episode, right? First time that we don't have a flashback is all current times, but I'm thinking that we're probably going to have some flashbacks of him doing some bad shit. Which I don't know if they'll do that because I don't know if they want us to not like Joel very much, but man, I would definitely like to see some shit.
Now, I don't know if I want to see this in a flashback or maybe even current time. A little part of me wants to see that person that was in the 1968 interview telling us about the fungus still be around somehow. Like I want them to either flashback to 2003 when he's a super old man, or like an old man, or the 2023 when he's super old. Maybe he's part of the Fireflies and who's looking for Ellie to help her, do whatever they need to do.
That would be dope, man. With the doctor from Indonesia, Ibu Ragna. But anyway, yeah, that would be cool, man. So they go to sleep. Next thing you know, Ellie's like calling Joel, like screaming for help. She's bleeding, right? And we see that the glass didn't work because he ends up like moving and his deaf ear was like the one that was out and he didn't hear shit. And, obviously didn't sleep at all. And now he just crashed. And then we see Henry holding Ellie and Sam pointing a gun at Joel. And then which brings me to the part of the superheroes because he has like face paint, right? Around his eyes. And he's just a little kid, man. Like, what, like 8 years old? 7, 8 years old?
Very little.
And holding a gun properly, just like we started the episode, pointing at Joel. And this is how we end.
And he tells him to keep quiet. See, the part of that really stands out for me, and for anyone watching this, let's say for the first time, if Henry and Sam were evil or doing bad things, they would not give them a chance to wake up. Sam literally gives them a warning to keep it quiet. And I think what we're going to see the next scene in episode 5 is that people are in the building looking for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's where I think that's where episode 5 begins.
Gotcha.
Or it might end up starting with a flashback scene of Henry and Sam and how they got into this position.
Yeah, it's possible. We'll see where they take us, man. But a couple of things that I look forward to. I want to see what's under that rubble.
Yeah, I think we're going to get there really quick.
Right. I hope that it's, whatever they do is probably going to be okay with me. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be another filler episode. I think it's going to get straight into the action. And I think they'll develop Henry's and Sam's story. And then we'll see where they take us from there. But other than that, any other notes or thoughts?
I just have a feeling that episode 5 is going to be a lot of killing. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of deaths. I think a lot of the hunters are going to find their demise. I don't know who's going to survive out of the people that we know that are the good guys. Whether Henry or Sam survives, I'm not sure. But I just think episode 5 is going to be pretty barbaric, because especially about what we're going to see in the basement and with Joel and Ellie's attempt to escape that QZ.
Yeah, and this was the first episode, and I know it's only episode 4, but every episode they've killed somebody major, right? They killed Sarah. Episode 2 they killed Tess. Episode 3 Bill and Frank. This one, I mean, a couple of hunters died, but no one major, right? So I think episode 5. Right. We're going to get some surprises, and I can't wait. Friday night. So hopefully we can bring the podcast back to you at some point super early as well. But other than that, I think that's all I got, man.
Well, let me ask you this. Who you got in the Super Bowl? Who you putting your money behind? Say it. It's okay. How much? How much? If you got
The smart,
you got
the smart answer, the smart money answer, no brainer is Philly, but my heart is saying Mahomes is gonna snap.
listen, bro. Your heart can say whatever the fuck it wants to say. Where's your wallet gonna say?
My wallet is probably
What?
my wallet is probably gonna leave it up to chance with a couple of squares and actually probably play both sides to see what happens on the spread.
Are you doing any of the prop betting,
Oh, probably.
like national anthem or
Oh,
Gatorade
you
or
know what?
any of that shit?
I think we might have a sheet going around, so I think so. We have these cards that are kind of like squares that we do. I'll show them to you later after the
Okay.
show if you want to put in some cash. But yeah, those are cool. Those are cool. I like that. Shots at the
other than
coaches and
that,
things like that. Over unders.
I don't really have anything else to chime in on. I think this week is going to be pretty hectic with, especially around here, with the Super Bowl being in Arizona, and now I have the Waste Management like right across the street from me. That's a golf tournament, and like it's crazy. Like, I don't know what traffic is going to look like starting tomorrow.
Well, good luck with that, my friend. We'll stay in touch. To the listeners, thank you so much for your time and patience. I know that if you made it this far, it's because you're enjoying the show as much as we are. If you are, please drop a like, a follow, a comment. Let us know your thoughts. What do you think? Predictions for episode 5, episode 6. How is this shit going to end? Have you played the game?
Yeah.
Have you not? Please let us know and share with a buddy. Why not?
Why not? Thanks,
J-Mo,
guys. Please
thank you. It was a pleasure.
subscribe.
Yep. There you go. Thank you so much.
Later, everybody.
It's like this, bro. It's like this.